Hello, everyone.
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Silas, and this is The Adventures of Kayla and Silas, a podcast about everything travel. Each week, we cover travel topics that we find interesting and that we hope you will too. Kayla.
Yes.
How's it going?
It's good.
That's good. All right, enough of chit-chat. Let's move on to follow-up. Last week's episode was with Devin about study abroad, and he was a great guest, and it was a great episode. So if you haven't listened to it yet, pause this, go listen to that episode, and then come back and listen to this episode.
Especially if you're thinking about studying abroad.
Especially if you're thinking about studying abroad, or if you want to learn more about fax machines.
Yes, we did talk a lot about fax machines.
Next bit of follow-up. Our courses are up and running on Udemy.
True story.
So if you haven't had a chance, head over and check them out today. We have one course on budgeting for your next trip and one on preparing for a study abroad or away trip. And we'll have links in the show notes so that you can easily find them.
Yep.
Cool stuff. Not a lot of follow-up today.
Guess we haven't been doing much.
Haven't been doing anything. Just sitting around, looking around. That's how I exist most days. So I guess we will just move right on to the heart of today's episode, which is going to be epic. Packing for a long trip.
I love this topic.
This is Kayla's favorite topic.
After budgeting.
Right after budgeting. I suggested it to her and she said, I was going to suggest that if you hadn't come up with any ideas yet for today's episode. And I was like, all right, good. You're really excited about this. So I want to jump in right away and kind of give you a little bit of setup here. We're planning a trip to Latin America that will be approximately a 9-month adventure for us. We have taken other trips together that have ranged from a couple of days to 3 weeks, but this will be the longest trip to date that we've taken together. However, we have always preferred traveling with just a carry-on backpack. We both took luggage when we studied abroad.
Right. Yeah, we need to delineate. Like when we go to Latin America next year, our plan is to be on the move and bringing everything with us all the time.
I think the longest we're planning to stay in any one location is a week to 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, it might
change, but that's our current plan.
Right. Exactly. So we won't promise that's going to happen, but based on kind of how we've outlined the trip, we think that we'll move every week or two.
Yep.
So unlike with study abroad, we took these huge bags, suitcases.
Yeah, my first study abroad trip, I took 2 giant suitcases.
But then you can just leave those in your room and take a normal sized backpack on weekend trips and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're not going to have the luxury of doing that when we're not going round trip back to the same hotel room every couple nights or what, we're going to kind of be moving in one direction the whole trip.
Sure. So today we want to discuss the pros and cons for traveling with a backpack or small carry-on, preferably a backpack, as well as share some tips and tricks for making a backpack work with any length trip.
Right. And I think, a lot of the things we're going to talk about are relevant regardless whether you're doing carry-on only or backpack only travel. But for us, we know kind of smaller is better. So that's kind of the lens through which many of our tips will come.
So I came up with a few pros and cons to try and set this up for people who are listening that we have thought about it from both sides.
Right.
And the pros, let's start with the cons.
Okay.
The cons are that if you're taking just a backpack,
you can't bring as much stuff.
Right. You have fewer items. And that's it. That is the only con for taking a backpack. If you disagree with us, you're wrong.
Well,
but honestly, I think that a lot of people will hit this hurdle, and it's more about fears than it is a list of actual cons.
Right.
Because you get into it and you start thinking, I won't be able to pack enough things for the trip, or I won't be able to find the things that I need every day, and so I must take everything with me.
Oh, sure. Like people who are like, I'm never going to see shampoo again.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I like to dress fashionably, and I can't do that without bringing large luggage.
A lot of clothes.
Right.
The only other con I could think of is if you were a person with back problems, a backpack might not be a great option.
Sure.
You might need to do like a rolling carry-on sort of situation.
Right, but it still would be the same idea then that you have this small carry-on option.
So when you're talking about backpacks, you're talking about carry-on size backpacks.
Yes, carry-on size backpacks.
Not
There
like
are
these people who like have like a whole 10.
100 liter, 200 liter, 500 liter backpacks.
I don't think those aren't things.
Well, you don't know me. So
there are people though who do long trips and they'll take like 80-liter backpacks.
yes, they will. And those are very large, and some airlines will allow you to travel with those as a carry-on, but most
not a
won't.
full 80-liter though.
I've seen people get on airplanes with
Really?
Yeah, I have. And I always look at them and I go, luckily you're on a giant plane, because otherwise that would be...
You're like carrying a person on your back.
Yeah, exactly.
So just for frame of reference, our backpacks are 40-liter backpacks.
Yep.
So 80 liters to us sounds ginormous. I used to have a 50-liter backpack, but I never filled it all the way up. So I could always get away with it as a carry-on.
Sure.
But it was a little bit cumbersome.
40 liters is the
Carry-on.
standard for carry-on size, more or less.
More or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
What about the pros?
yes, let's jump right into the pros. Ease at the airport. It's a lot easier to get, especially I'm thinking about our trip to, was it that we went to Jamaica? That was the first time that we had checked luggage, and we got off the plane. And we were like, all right, we're through security. It took us...
Our fridge wanted to be part of the conversation.
Apparently. We got off the plane and we're like, all right, let's get through security. And then it took us 45 minutes to get through security.
Yeah.
And then we're like, all right, well, let's go get our bags. But our bags still hadn't shown up. And so we waited another 45 minutes after that for our luggage to get off the plane.
Yeah, and that time it was because it was my sister's wedding. I had like a bridesmaid dress that I didn't want to just stuff into a backpack.
In retrospect, that would have been a great idea.
Yeah, because it ended up, well, anyway, it's a long story with that dress.
Yes, it was.
But
so getting around the airport is a lot easier.
But I was going to say, not even just about this notion of waiting for your bags on the back end, or like the possibility of losing your bag, of your bag getting lost.
Yes, exactly.
But
the
just
other point
like
that I wanted to make.
Yeah, but just walking around the airport is easier with a backpack than, in my mind.
Well, or a small carry-on. If you have a small rolling carry-on.
Yeah.
That's small.
Although I suppose if you're
easy.
Checking a big bag, you check it at the beginning and then you don't have to.
Right, exactly.
But
then you don't you're right. That other point of you cut out the opportunity of losing luggage. And we just took a car trip. We just took a road trip.
Yep.
And on the road trip we took backpacks as well, and that was also super convenient. Yeah. I think just because getting into these next couple points I have here, it's because it's easier just walking around with small luggage. When you have fewer things to carry, it's easier to move around, regardless of whether you're in a city, you're going out just camping, you're moving anywhere. When you have fewer things, it's easier to move. Plain and simple.
True. And I think you have to think about what's easiest for you. So take our opinions out of this. So for those of you listening, maybe a duffel bag's easier, but it sounds awful to me to carry a duffel bag around.
And maybe for some people, it is easier for them to move around when they have more things on their person. Like there might be people who are incapable of moving until you just pile a whole bunch of stuff on top of them.
That doesn't make any sense.
I think that could be a real option.
I want to talk about your last pro.
Okay, my last pro is a simplified packing list. And of course, you'd want to talk about this because Kayla, at her core, at her most Kayla center, is a minimalist.
I am.
She wants there to be nothing. She wants to have a house filled with nothing that she can be in without anything around her. That's her dream house. A tiny house with nothing in it.
The example I was going to give was that I am really excited about us traveling next year because it gives us the opportunity to downsize and to really think about what
AKA
things in our life are important.
Let's throw away all of Silas's things.
No,
But
just some of them.
honestly, though, when you do simplify your packing list, you have less things to worry about. If you're moving locations, let's say that even if you're going to stay in 2 different hotel rooms and you have to pack stuff from one hotel room up so that you can do your trip to the other hotel room, wherever that is, and you get there, you have fewer things to worry about, and that makes the trip less stressful.
Right. The more stuff you have, the more it spreads out in your hotel room or wherever you're staying, the more likely you are to leave something behind.
Yeah.
That's 100% true. But I do think the concept of carry-on only travel, like it forces you to downsize. It forces you to think about what's most important.
Right. So let's move into some of the details of how we choose our luggage and how we make a backpack or a small carry-on work for us. Kayla, talk to us about choosing luggage, because you wrote that bullet point.
Well, but then
On
you
here.
wrote all those other bullet points before it.
Kayla, talk to us about choosing luggage.
Well, so for us in particular, I mean, to be really, really specific, we use
She's dying.
so refreshing. I'm sorry. You should cut all of this part out. Well, so to be really, really specific, so we use an Osprey backpack called the Farpoint, and I love this backpack because it's super versatile. And I'll talk about this when we get to clothing as well. Like the more things in your life that are multi-purpose, the more functional those few things become, right? So
Sure.
I love this bag. It opens, like the whole front opens and folds over like it's a suitcase. So you can get to all the parts of the bag all at once. It's like one big kind of cavity area. But it also has like a laptop sleeve. It's got water bottle, what's that word?
Holders.
Holders? I don't know.
Compartments.
The thing that your water bottle goes in on the outside.
Oh, a doohickey.
That is not a word.
Dingle hopper.
Well, anyway, love that backpack. It's also officially carry-on size, even for airlines, like budget airlines like Ryanair in Europe. This backpack still works for that. And it's from Osprey, which is one of the best brands for backpacks. They have like this amazing warranty. If it breaks, they'll fix it, sort of situation. And so it's the kind of backpack that we could just have forever and ever and never replace because
Sure.
It's that awesome.
So we chose this backpack after doing a lot of research, and the research for us was thinking about what things are important to us and what things will we be packing for the majority of our trips. And so the Osprey backpack may not be the most ideal backpack for everyone who's traveling.
Right. Of course.
But it is important to ask yourself a series of questions that include, what am I bringing? What types of travel am I doing? And I don't know. What are the questions, Kayla?
Well, I would say the biggest things are carry-on versus not carry-on size for a backpack.
Right, but we're making the argument for
ours in particular?
We're making an argument for doing this as carry-on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think if you're looking at backpack, the number one thing I would ask myself is, what don't I like about what I already have?
Sure.
If you already like something that you already own, obviously don't go buy a new backpack. But for me, I had a top loading bag, and that really was a pain when I needed something from the bottom. And so I just decided to kind of make that switch. I ended up selling my old backpack for the exact same amount of money that I bought my new backpack for. So it was total win-win. But it's a very personal decision. Go to REI or sports store or something and just try on a bunch of backpacks. And a lot of those stores like REI and Moose Jaw and things like that, they'll actually show you how to pack it, or they'll pack weight in it for you so you can really feel what it would be like full and get a sense of comfort level for your body. And some of those backpacks are uber fancy, and they actually have different sizes so that they'll help fit your torso better.
Yep.
And that you can carry the weight in the most like kind of ergonomical way possible.
So when you're thinking about, for me, the biggest thing, and I already said it, but the biggest thing is thinking about what things you want to bring with you on the trip, and figuring that out, because if you aren't going to bring a laptop, then getting a backpack with a laptop sleeve is a little unnecessary.
Right.
and so on and so forth. But moving on to the things that we will pack and how we tend to do that so that we are able to make it work, we go through a lot of steps and we think through each item, each type of item individually and how we're going to make that work. So with clothing,
Right.
of course, you need to bring clothes unless you're going to a resort that is clothing optional. Or even then, I believe most airlines still require clothing.
Yeah, but you could just wear clothing on the plane, so it doesn't have to go in your bag.
Good point.
No, but what I was going to say just really quickly is...
Oh, my word.
Oh.
Go ahead.
No, I lost my train of thought. Shut up, Silas. The stuff that goes in the backpack. Oh.
I put together these perfect segues, and then you just backtrack. Go ahead.
It was not a perfect segue because I had something else to add before we went to the segue.
Good. Let's just move on with whatever you're saying.
What I was going to say. So actually over the last, 6 months or so, we've been thinking that we were going to do this Latin America trip. And so for every trip we've taken this year, we've done essentially a trial run for packing for long-term travel.
Yes.
So obviously we didn't exactly pack the items that we thought we would take to Latin America, but we tried to pack around the same number of pieces of clothing. And Silas has been experimenting with what kinds of cameras and kind of tech gear he was going to bring. And we've been trying to figure out, do we really like this backpack? We bought the backpack that we just talked up for the last 10 minutes and tried it out, and we love it, all of those things. And so we've done a lot of practical research, I guess, in putting together a packing list and figuring out the best way to pack our bags and where everything goes in a way that makes sense for us and is easy for us to pack and unpack in multiple locations. So, clothing. Go back and use Silas's old transition.
Clothing. That's the whole transition. Well, we'll just use it. Then clothing. Doesn't really give us a whole lot to talk about there, does it? So Kayla has a couple of points written down here that the most important thing is to pack versatile clothing. And I completely agree with this. Looking at my wardrobe and thinking about our trip for the next 9 months, well, when we take it, the 9-month long trip, I don't want to carry lots and lots and lots of clothing, and finding clothing that is versatile so that I can make several outfits out of the clothes that I bring, and also making sure that it will be weather appropriate and occasion appropriate is what I've been trying to think through. And one of the things that I've found is some either merino wool or what's the other thing? Bamboo
apparel.
And these are things that are moisture wicking and are odor resistant and are great for me. I love it. I'm planning to bring 3 shirts, 3 pairs of underwear, and 3 pairs of socks, a pair of jeans, and a pair of shorts, and that's about it.
And a jacket.
If I can find a jacket. A couple pairs of shoes, but that's all I'm going to bring. I will be able to last several days. I'm not going to run into anyone who's going to care if I've worn the same shirt for the last 3 days, but we're also planning to be places that we can do laundry regularly. And so it is very freeing to think about that, to go, oh, I don't have to really worry about upkeep on clothing or how am I going to pack all of the clothing. It's just going to be very simple and it's going to work for me. But you also have on here to use neutral colors to help blend outfits. You want to talk more about that?
Well, so in thinking about Silas's clothing, I was also going to add that Silas is a t-shirt and shorts kind of guy. Like that's what he normally wears. So, he adds in the jeans for those days when it'll be cooler, and then the jacket as well for that purpose. But even at home, he'll wear a gray t-shirt 3 days in a row with shorts. And that's just what he wears. And that's another point, I think, which is don't go so far away from your own style to be versatile or to be neutral in color or whatever it is. So these tips...
Right, definitely pick things that you feel
comfortable wearing. Exactly. Because if you take something with you that's like, some travel website says this is the best possible whatever, and
it might be the best possible thing for them.
Yeah, it's going to sit at the bottom of your bag.
If it's not the best possible thing for you.
Exactly. So the reason I had neutral colors on here And I think this is more for me probably than Silas, because Silas really is t-shirt and shorts.
Just say it. I'm a boring dresser.
Well,
Just
yeah.
Say it. Just say it, Kayla.
And you already dress in neutral colors.
Just say it.
You're a boring dresser.
You are so mean.
But for me, I dress more often in layers because I get cold all the time. So
Kayla's constantly cold.
Always cold. So I've been trying to think, what pieces do I want to add to my wardrobe? What pieces do I already have in my closet, to the point where everything would go together? And so I've been...
Well, what's the term for it? There are a lot of people who
Capsule wardrobe.
Capsule wardrobes. We'll include a link to Capsule Wardrobes.
So Travel Fashion Girl is a blogger who talks a lot about capsule wardrobes, but it's a concept beyond travel. But this concept of having a very small wardrobe of things that you love and things that all go together. And so part of that for me is focusing in on neutral colors, because I don't necessarily always wear neutral colors when I have my whole closet at my disposal. But when I'm thinking about, I can only bring this many pairs of shoes, I can only bring this many pairs of pants and tops, I want everything to go together. Another thing I think about when I plan ahead for packing clothing is obviously weather. We're going to South America, where we're going to get really hot beach weather in Brazil. We're going to get really cold mountain weather in Peru.
Really, really cold weather when we go to Antarctica to pet the penguins.
Yep, Silas is still thinking about the penguins. Anyway,
so
obviously you want to take all of the weather into account. For us, we've kind of resigned the fact that, it's okay if we end up spending an extra $20 in Peru because we're going to buy hats and mittens and things like that. But we don't necessarily want to put them in our bag for the whole 9-month adventure.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe when we're in Brazil, we're going to buy an extra pair of sunglasses or an extra swimsuit or something like that. And
this gets back to one of the fears that people have when they look at, how are you going to do that with just a backpack? How would I be able to do a long trip with just a backpack because I wouldn't have everything that I need? Well, most of the places that you're visiting are going to have for sale the things that you need. And if saving space in your bag is more important to your trip than spending a few extra dollars on things that you'll use once while you're at the destination that you're at, then buy them when you get there. And that's an okay thing, because that's an okay thing.
Right. And I mean, people everywhere in the world are smart. If you're in the mountains, someone is selling cold weather gear.
Sure.
If you're on the beach, someone is selling hot weather gear. People know that tourists come and don't have the right things, and so they sell them in those places.
Will you spend more money for them there? Yes. But if you are having to pay for, if you weigh it against the cost of paying for luggage on your trip or the ease of getting around,
right.
I mean, if we were to tote large luggage with us everywhere that would have the cold weather gear and, the snorkels and I want to say flip-flops. What are they called?
Flippers?
The snorkels and flippers that we would need at the beach for,
snorkeling,
then it would just be a headache, and it would be frustrating to carry around this essentially bag of goodies. And I'm digressing.
Yeah, he is. No, but I think the point is, be okay. If you're doing a long trip like we are and you only have so much space, it's okay to buy things when you get there. Mm-hmm. And the other point I was going to say is, a lot of hostels have kind of communal buckets and bins where people literally leave behind things that they don't need anymore because they did buy something like a swimming suit or snorkel goggles or whatever it is. Snorkel goggles? Or are those two separate things?
Now you're digressing.
But a lot of times you can pick those things up at a hostel for free and then put them back in the bin when you're done. Mm-hmm. And leave them for the next guest who's in need. I mean, really, unless you're going off-roading, doing the whole camping solo thing, you're bringing your own tent, your own sleeping bag, you're really going off the grid.
Yeah.
You should be able to find anything you need, unless what you need is a very specific name brand of mascara.
So moving on to the next topic, how to save space, because I think we've exhausted this clothing topic.
Okay.
How to save space. There are a few different ways, and you can find lots of videos and lots of articles online about how to save space, and people will sell you things that will help you save space. But there are a few things that we've found that are simple and work for us. One of the first things that we do is we roll our clothing. Moving from clothing to how to pack your clothing, roll it up.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's it. Next topic. No, go ahead, Kayla.
so in addition to rolling clothes, we generally use packing cubes, and you can find these literally everywhere now. But if you don't want to buy packing cubes, because they are sometimes a little bit expensive,
They can be.
you can even use just like gallon-size Ziploc bags for roll up your t-shirt and then stuff them in kind of one at a time. You should be able to fit 3, 4, 5 shirts in one gallon-size Ziploc bag, and then they pack flat. Essentially, all you're trying to do is squeeze in as much as you possibly can into a smaller space. Then it will ultimately take up less space in your bag because
Physics.
and I was going to say too, if you have, if you're
Explaining-
just throwing everything in your bag, then it's going to take up more space, obviously.
Kayla explaining physics.
But packing cubes or whatever organizational structure you use also make it easier for you to get in and out of your bag quickly when you
Sure.
just need one specific item.
Pack inside your shoes. Rubber band shoes together. This is also another neat trick. Sometimes I will do this also when I'm at the beach. I will take my wallet and put it in my shoe towards the tip of the shoe to keep the thieves away from stealing my wallet.
What if they steal your shoes?
No one would want those. They smell bad.
Yeah, so I mean, I usually put like my socks inside of my tennis shoes because they're an obvious, if they start smelling like my shoes, they're going to do that anyway once I put them on and put my feet inside my shoes.
Another stinky foot joke.
Another stinky foot joke. But like anything you can fit inside, especially tennis shoes. Obviously, if your shoes can like actually pack flat, then you should try to do that. But then I also have on here, and I don't often do this, but I saw this and I think it's a great idea, and we should bring some rubber bands with us on our next trip. But you basically put the shoes together so that they make one solid kind of rectangle, and then you put rubber bands around them to kind of squeeze them in even more to save a little extra space.
Sounds like it's bad on the integrity of the shoe, but good for your packing.
Well, it doesn't have to be like a super tight rubber band.
I was imagining a super tight rubber band. What were you imagining? A super loose rubber band? So then you can also invest in packable items is the other option. And these are things that are like rain jackets that fold up into
the pocket.
And then you zip it together, and then it's a little tiny thing.
Pouch full of a rain jacket.
Exactly. There are other items like this. We have backpacks that do this and some other things. I have it's like my umbrella that folds up into itself and actually turns into a Swiss Army knife, and some other horrible transformers.
That's a multi-purpose tool if I ever heard of it.
Basically, you're just looking for the most boring transformers out there.
No, but for instance, I have
a rain jacket that turns into a pouch.
For instance, I have. Oh my God, you're obnoxious.
That's my transformer noise.
I'm afraid to talk because they think you're going to cut me off. What I was going to say is, for instance, I have a tote bag, which is great for like taking to the grocery store, that packs into itself. And it's probably the size of like, I don't know, walnut.
I don't measure things by walnuts, but I believe you.
I don't know. How big would you say that it is? Like a golf ball?
Yeah.
We measure hail by golf balls. So let's say golf ball.
Yes.
Size.
Pouches and hail are very similar things.
Yes. I'm just saying it's already a normed size that people talk about.
So it packs into itself nicely.
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Packing things into themselves is great for saving space. Another way that we like to pack is thinking about medicine toiletries. Did you like that segue? Not as good as
it doesn't make any
nudist
sense.
colony thing that I was doing earlier, but medicine and toiletries. This is the big thing. Kayla will go on and on, I'm sure, about how I always forget allergy medicine. And so, you can find allergy medicine all over the world, and it's not a big deal. But don't forget that there are rules when it comes to medicine and toiletries. Kayla, tell us about said rules. It's like
You have the worst segues.
Thanks, Kayla.
He's taking my words and just reading them word for word as if I wrote this bullet point to be like the way you should read it, which is not the way you should read it.
Good.
Anyway, if you're flying, there are rules about your toiletries and your medicine. And so it's just one thing to think about when you're packing. So with your toiletries, they have to either be under 3 ounces or 100 milliliters. And altogether, they have to fit into a quart-size bag. So we obviously will take a quart-size bag with us when we're flying. Once you're at your destination, you can kind of spread things out a little bit differently. What that means is you end up with essentially having to make some decisions about what kind of toiletries you're going to bring. So it's just one thing to think about. If you do want to bring like larger shampoo or things like that, you would have to check your bag.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And then medicine, there are lots of rules about medicine. Essentially, they want you to have your medicine still in its original container, which is very, very hard to do if you want to bring like, a few aspirin and a few stomach medicine, stuff like that. Like, I feel like most people would prefer just to kind of mix and match whatever they normally.
By that, Kayla means she likes to mix and match her drugs.
No, I feel like a lot of people do that though, where you just have like 4 ibuprofen in your purse at a time instead of a whole huge container of ibuprofen.
Okay. I don't keep any medicine in my purse.
Well, technically, your medicine should be marked. Obviously, if you have a prescription medicine that you're concerned you might need to fill while you're away, you should bring the prescription with you, the paper prescription, or have your medicine container so you can take it to the pharmacy. Ideally, though, you would have all the medicine you need in advance of your trip so that you don't have to go to a pharmacy while you're gone.
Yep. So moving on from medicines, because that's a pretty basic one and there's not a whole lot to it. Yep. The other big thing that you can think about, especially for a long trip like this and for us as we are trying to do
any trip abroad, I would say on this point.
The biggest thing is that there are a lot of pieces of paper, or there are a lot of, for us, we are doing projects and we have just lots of things that we need to have access to file-wise, and looking at online storage as an option rather than printing off all of these things or trying to store it on your computer or tablet or whatever, online storage is a much better option.
Right. So a lot of people will tell you that you need to print out and have with you a copy of your passport, for example. Well, I disagree with them because to me, it makes much more sense to store a copy of my passport online, say on Dropbox or iCloud or whatever you use, because then if everything of mine gets stolen, I still have access to my passport because I can go to an internet cafe, I can log on to my account, and I can print off what I need to go to my embassy. Same is true for your banking information, if you have visa photos, anything that you feel like you need to bring paper copies of on your trip, I would suggest that you think about putting them in an online storage option. The other thing people always say you should print off before you go are things like hotel reservations, tickets, whatever it is. I highly recommend instead that you download them to your phone as a PDF or whatever works kind of best in your situation. But I have yet in 2017 found a person who wouldn't accept, a PDF version on my phone of a ticket.
We found one person.
Where?
When we went to the comedy club in Des Moines and it was a Groupon, they wanted us to have printed off the Groupon rather than showing it on our phone.
Was that the situation?
Yep.
I was so mad.
We were both mad.
We never went to that dang comedy club. Or like your airline tickets, generally you just need to show up and show them your passport or your ID and they already know exactly who you are.
Yep.
But even if you want to kind of skip the line and just do the self-kiosk situation, you can just like take a screen capture on your phone of the 6-digit code or whatever they give you for your confirmation. You should be able to type that in and then you're good to go. Aside from things we want to have access to, kind of work related, you should really consider thinking about online storage, PDF storage, screen capture storage of these things that other people will tell you to take paper copies of, because by the end of the trip, or by the end of preparing for the trip, you'll end up with a whole folder full of paper and be down an ink cartridge in your printer at home, and it's just totally not worth it because most people don't need it. I mean, if someone for sure says make sure you have this printed out in advance, then you should probably do it. But for airlines, for hotels, for passport copies, for banking information,
and there is the issue of,
don't do it.
I mean, the thing that people often say is there's the issue of your phone dying. There's the issue of
internet dying.
The issue of there being no internet options for you. And so it is important to give yourself options for those things to not be an issue, like taking screenshots and saving them to your phone, or other ways to save things to files where you can get access to them, or make sure that you have charging cords, those sorts of things. But
yeah, I mean, that's right. Just on you to be tech savvy.
But the point is that you made earlier, that if your bag is stolen with all the papers in it, then
there is no point in printing it off to begin with.
Right. So, I mean, do bring paper copies. I think that that's an okay thing to do, but also have it on your phone and have it on the cloud, because that's really important.
That's more important. I mean, I was in rural Africa and I had access to internet.
Sure.
I mean, I had to take a bus to town to go to an internet cafe. But if I needed my passport copy, I could have gotten it in a couple hours time. And gone to the embassy from there. So
the last point that we want to talk about is our own personal struggles as we are packing for this extended trip. Because we want to share with all of our listeners that while we try to make this sound very easy and very straightforward, that, oh yes, of course, taking a backpack is the easiest thing in the world to do long travel with. We personally have run into issues with some of our own wants and needs as we are looking at preparing for this trip. Mm-hmm. I will say that the biggest thing that we run into with Kayla is that she's always cold. And so making sure that we pack enough things that will keep her warm is almost impossible. An entire backpack full of clothes and blankets would not be enough to keep her warm, but we have found some great thermal options. And also we're planning to go places that will be warm for the most part. And places that aren't warm, we are just going to have to put up with cold Kayla.
Which is no fun for anyone.
The other thing that we are struggling with, and really the biggest thing, is tech gear. As we're doing...
The other thing that Silas is struggling with, since you got to talk about my problem.
Go ahead, Kayla.
Silas wants to bring all of his stuff.
Be more specific if you're really going to dig in here.
You know, this is a man who can't go to like his mom's house without needing to bring a camera, a tripod, and X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So he really likes having lots of options available when it comes to audio and visual recording. And so he has done a good job of parsing down his list, but he hasn't quite made it to the point where it all fits in one singular backpack. I will say he is willing to sacrifice clothing for tech gear. So he has tried
one shirt and one pair of pants.
Please don't. What do you wear when you do laundry?
Nothing. We'll go to the nudist colony to do laundry. But yes, making sure that we have enough room for this tech gear has been a struggle. And the simple answer, I think most people are thinking, why not just not bring the tech gear? Well, a lot of our personal goals of documenting our trip and continuing to do this podcast and
making money.
One of several of the ways that we're planning to do that is through the gear that we're bringing.
Right.
And so if we don't bring the gear, then we don't meet our goals of the trip and being able to sustain ourselves during the trip. So it's a bit of a necessity, if you ask me.
We're still kind of walking the line between exactly what we're bringing, or we're still navigating kind of exactly what that part of our packing list will look like. I think we're a little more set on things like toiletries and clothes.
Those things are a little more straightforward. So,
but the tech gear, we're still trying to decide, what happens if we're in this situation and we want this kind of shot? Is it worth it to bring this extra piece of equipment to get exactly what we want? Or is it just going to sit at the bottom of our bag and not do anything for us?
Yep. Lots of things to consider, but I think that's our show. As always, we ask that you leave any questions you have in the comments section below, or if you have a specific question, feel free to email us directly or connect with us on social media. Our email address is kaylaandsilas@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest by searching Kayla and Silas. You can find us on iTunes, and if you want to leave us a review there, that would be awesome. It helps other people find our show. Once again,
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Silas, wishing you luck with your upcoming adventures.